Hey guys, and welcome to another Sims 4 speed building video. My name is Leaf, and I am so thankful for you all to be here today. Today we're doing a build for the up-and-coming Snowy Escape expansion pack for The Sims 4. Now, this pack seems to be really interesting. It's nothing as amazing as Journey to Batu, but I think the Sims community will forgive EA for taking such liberties. This is a Japanese-inspired build, and because of that, you're going to see a lot of the incorporation of utilizing the roofs in very unique ways, and the interior is something that also reflects Japanese culture as well. Now, before we get into the actual build itself, I did kind of come up with sort of a lore behind it beforehand, just to kind of give this build a better idea, a better identity of what it really is in the end. So one of the things that I've always been interested in is American-Japanese relations, specifically regarding the betterment of relations between the two countries following the events of World War II. Now, the main idea for this house is built under the premise that some American chap came over from across the seas and decided to start his new life over in Japan. There he met a lovely lady, and they eventually went into business together and started a prosperous business and went on to create this house for themselves. Now, the house itself is modeled after the Makiki Christian Church in Honolulu, Hawaii. I was just searching up just Japanese architecture one day, and I came upon this really beautiful looking building, and I thought, hey, you know what? New expansion coming out, really Japanese oriented. I feel like I could really bring this to essence in The Sims 4, even without all the seemingly amazing build by objects that we're going to have in just a bit. Now, going on through the build, you're going to see me start to incorporate a variety of different building styles that you'd see a lot of the times within Japanese architecture. Now, Wakiki Christian Church in Honolulu does incorporate some Japanese architectural elements. However, it has a more Western approach on the overall facade of the building itself. It's not a traditional one in the sense that you would see authentically represented in, say, Kyoto or Hiroshima, but it's rather something that came to be after the inspiration of a lot more Western architectural elements. And you'll start to see that come forth in the build that I'm making today. It's not traditional in the slightest. Once I got to the interior, I had no idea what I was going to do with it, so it turned out to be more of a modern mansion, if you will. You can see me start to go through the build right now. I am not sure if you guys can see it where you are right now, but I did incorporate a little bit of a balcony on the top roof. I think it just gives a nice area for your Sims to go out to, enjoy the fresh breezes, maybe plant some plants up there, and so on and so forth. Right now, I'm just going around doing a little bit of detailing. This is going to be a very detail-centric build, I might add. So right now, I'm just adding a little bit of wood elements just to give this a little bit of variety when looking at this from the exterior. So you'll see this tower in the center where the two sides of the building connect. That all is mainly wood besides the opposite part of it. And I just wanted to give it as a ways to separate both wings. I wanted to build it as a way to separate both wings of the house itself. And you can see me going around the build adding a lot more wooden elements to it, such as the I think those supports actually came with seasons, so I just add those around the build just to break up all the large white planes of concrete that you'll see over and over again. The windows I'm not really a big fan of, but it was the only kind that I felt really exemplified the original build I used as inspiration for this. And going forth, I just add a few more wooden columns just to break it up a little bit more, and I think in the end it all turns out really nice. It comes off as a really authentic looking build. Even though it's not entirely authentic to traditional Japanese architecture, it is traditional in the sense that it incorporates a more Western approach to the architectural style itself. And one of the things that I thought I would incorporate really well well were some of the splatters from the Strangerville pack, and I just go around the entire house. I try and make this look a little bit too old, if it were. I just make it look like there's a lot of weather damage on it. I make it look like, you know, it's seen its fair share and it hasn't really been cleaned up in a good while. This house could really use a power washer. And another thing I did as well is a little trick called forced perspective, and in doing so, I took the third floor of the building itself and made it the medium height of the walls, and this creates an effect so when you're looking up to it, the entire build looks a lot bigger than it actually is. Now, you'll see this a lot with theme parks and stuff like that, where they don't really have a lot of headroom to work with, so they try and make their buildings appear a lot bigger than they actually are. I guess in this sense, I actually did increase the size of the build height, so I guess you could call it true perspective. It looks taller in the end, that's all I care about. So going around here, I have a nice palette set out. I want to incorporate white and red, as it is the color of the flag of Japan, and those colors also have a very important significance in Japan itself. Now, white is traditionally used as a color of purity. It's give a sense of cleanliness. It's also invoking of a sense of purity and truth. Now, the color red, on the other hand, represents a little bit more passion, a little bit more strength. So also, I just want to incorporate some bamboo as well. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. I think this kind of bamboo that The Sims has is a type of Bengal bamboo. I think it looks really nice, and I can't wait to see it in the snow itself, when we actually get access to Snowy Escape. So right here, I'm doing a traditional Japanese grave. Now, going back to the lore of the house itself, and you know what? I'm making this up on the spot, and I don't even care anymore. So, hypothetically, I guess you could say that the woman who the man married, her grandmother was still alive, and they moved in together, and they utilized the third bedroom, and eventually she passed away, and I just wanted to create something that's representative to a little bit more of the Japanese history and a lot more of the Japanese traditions than any other build could. So right here, I'm doing it right in the crux of the garden, and I eventually settle on putting a nice archway to lead to the grave itself. Unfortunately, we don't have the real Shinto archways that I assume the pack would bring us, so I eventually settle on one that I think came from Outdoor Retreat, but I could be entirely mistaken. No, I think it's from Strangerville, actually, so it has a little bit of a Western vibe, but, you know, for the purposes of this build, it blends in beautifully. Now, going into the interior, this was absolutely brutal. I hated it, and I hated every second of it. But I think in the end, I come off with a really nice and really unique build that I think any simmer can enjoy. So I have the staircase leading up directly up the tower itself, and gives access to the balcony all the way up there, and here I am just designing the rooms, which will eventually be changed out. I go to put on a door up there, and I think I also changed the size of the balcony so you could actually breathe up there. Now I go around doing a little bit of lighting, just making sure that this build really sticks out. I think these lanterns, I think they also came with the base game. I think they come out looking really beautiful on the exterior. They have a nice wooden look to them that makes them look really rustic to the point where you would easily see this build in like countryside Japan, like sticking right off of the mountain. I think it gives it a really beautiful air. I wish I could go back to fool around with the colors of the lights to make it look a little bit more like red flames rather than the white glare that most of the base game lights have. And so here I go on the interior. I start to use some of these sliding doors from Island Paradise just to give a shoji door look to them. I know we don't have access to the shoji doors yet, but I think that these come off looking just as fine. I think they blend into the build really well, especially with all the wood paneling that you see going on in here. Over here, I tried to open this up to the ceiling, the little Zen garden right there, right when you walk into the banister, but it just didn't agree with me. The pathing just absolutely wonked itself out, so you miss out, but it's fine. Working on the kitchen up here, I sort of designed this with a frame of mind that these people would have the use of servants or maids or butlers or something like that. And I actually do include a butler's quarter down in the basement as well for 2 butlers and their kid. So here I include a couple stoves. I put a separate room for the refrigerator as well as some laundry as well. And going on off of that, I start to do the layouts of the bedrooms. I originally wanted to stick with the general concept that you see a lot of the community doing right now, that most Japanese bathrooms actually have the toilet and the sink separate. So you'll see that pop up a lot. Right here, this is probably one of my favorite rooms in the whole house. This is the dining room. Now, the way that I see it, I would see that the owners of the house would invite very prosperous guests over, maybe even government officials, and they would just wine and dine them so that they would stick their hands in the pockets of the senators and stuff like that. So I want to create a good guest experience through the house, and I did skimp out on a orientation towards the household members themselves, but I think in the end, this build comes off grandiose enough that they'll love every single square inch of it. So I do end up decorating a little bit of the kitchen. I feel like it would be something you would want to be proud of. I would assume that the members of the house would hire really top-notch chefs to create meals night after night after night after hosting so many officials over. And I feel like they really care about quality in every single aspect of it. Here I am doing a downstairs bathroom, nothing really too fancy. I generally just kept it really nice and really clean all over, and I do hang up a few of those green curtains. I realize they're not the best looking things. I do realize they're more country than anything else, but for the purposes of this build, there weren't really any other good looking curtains that I could use. One of my favorite things I actually did in this build were put the place cards on the dining tables themselves. And I feel like when you would be invited over to this house for dinner, you would instantly be impressed and you would know who you're dealing with at that point. Another fan favorite of mine is this little bar area over here. And I do include a little bit of sitting area for the guests as well, just so they could sip their drinks right before dinner and just generally relax themselves before such an event took place. I found that decoration tends to be a little bit of not really my favorite thing in the world. So if you guys see something that looks kind of wonky, I admit I have to apologize firsthand for that. But in the end, I just come off with a house that I love in the end, and I hope you guys can too. So here we are working on the downstairs bathroom. I think I did the upstairs first. I have not a clue in the world. No, this is a residential bathroom. I include that little corner jacuzzi, and I do include a shower. I go around making it look pretty, and I do actually change out the floor in that. Right here is the little sink room as well, and I do also change that out just so you can have some downstairs access. I don't continue on with the rest of the stairs. I keep the butler stairs separate just because that wouldn't be something where, you know, your guest would be, hey, what's that? Instead, it's off in the corner and somewhere else. So right here, I'm working on the bedrooms. Now, right here, I'm working on the teenager's bedroom. It's nothing too fancy. I did want to include a little bit of personality in there. I want to make this room feel like it's sort of rebellious against the whole prim and proper lifestyle, so he does hang up a few posters and such like that. He has his own ensuite bathroom, and I don't think the actual master bathroom has an ensuite. No, it doesn't. It's right there. So that's a little something where that kid kind of lucked out. I include a jersey as well. I feel like he'd be a really big football fan as well. And here I go, just putting some sitting areas around the house, just making sure that anyone can find a place to sit and enjoy the atmosphere of whatever room you're in. Here I am down in the entrance area number 1. I put these swords here. I really wish we had katanas because that would have fit so much better. But I think it comes off as a really nice atmosphere in the end. I feel like this would be a nice room where you would invite your guests over, have a little bit of tea, and just generally, I don't know, shoot the shit. Something like that. I include a chess table there just because I want more activities for the Sims to actually engage with. And I figured worst comes to worst, a chess table would work just fine. Going around the house, adding some sconces. As I said in my last speed build, I really feel like lighting should be a huge focal point, especially when you're working with wall lighting, which generally a lot of people don't regard as the most necessary thing. But I think it adds a lot of decoration, and not only decoration, but lighting as well to a house. It generally comes off with a lot more wonderful atmosphere. Here I am working on the attic. I included a couple meditation stands for your Sims to engage with up there, an easel, and some holiday decorations, just because this is a more Western-leaning Japanese family. They have a large influence of Western society within them. And you'll see soon enough, I actually do put a Christmas tree in this room that we were just working on. I don't know where it went. And I do include a lot of Western elements in this build as well, just because normally when you go to Japan, it's not even Japan, normally when you go anywhere, it's not exactly a 100% replica of the culture that you're in itself, but rather a sum of the various cultures that have had an impact on it. And in the end, it creates a more unique look to it and keeps on building off of there. And I mean, without that, we wouldn't have the cultures where we have right now. And so a whole premise of this build sort of builds off of the fact that not one culture can be represented in a single way. There's always going to be outliers, and there's always going to be mixed with other cultures as well. And that's especially true to the point when you're talking about Japanese culture. You're going to have a lot of crossovers with various countries and nationalities that Japan has interacted with in the past. You're also going to have a lot of differences between a lot of, say, northern Japanese culture and southern Japanese culture, and urban and rural. And it's just all going to be so different. And I think that's a really important thing. When you're trying to build a build that is representative of a culture, you should really look a lot more into it and get a better understanding of what it is that you're working with. So here we are downstairs. I wanted to make this place look as cluttered as possible, so I did my very best to do so. I put a few boxes, a few canvases and stuff like that, a few like sacks of food, just to make sure that this place looks like it is not a clean place, not really clean, but not a well-organized place to live in. And I feel like though the servants of the house do get a lot of recognition for what they do, they're kind of shoved in the basement with all the rest of the trash, and there's possibly some gameplay dynamic going on with that. So here we are towards the end of the build, and we will jump right into the live section. Alright guys, so welcome to the live section of the build. As you can see, I kind of set the weather to snowy just to have a little bit more, atmosphere for what this lot will eventually be dropped into for the new expansion. As you guys can kind of see right here, you can see a lot more of that detail I was talking about earlier with the wall splatters and stuff like that. I think it makes it look really rustic. It makes the build stick out a lot more, and you can kind of see the whole vibe I have going on over here with the shrine itself. Now this little sitting area right here is one of my favorite parts of it. It just feels really warm, really welcoming, and I think the decoration in here makes the whole place get rounded out to be really nice looking. And then we move on into the dining room itself, and I think these little shoji screens in the back over there really do a great job of tying the whole room together. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to show off for this build. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing builds in the future. I'm sure once the expansion comes out, I will go absolutely ham with building a lot more stuff like this. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great time. Hope you had a great time watching, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Bye.